They said money could fix everything, but for Alexander Drake, it couldn't fix this. The night was quiet, too quiet for a man whose world once revolved around flashing cameras and champagne toasts. In the heart of Silvercrest Bay, inside a glass mansion overlooking the sea, a billionaire sat alone, staring at a single photo frame. It was cracked. A woman's smile, frozen in time, and in her arms, a baby with the same blue eyes that haunted him every night. He whispered softly, 5 years, and I still can't forget you. The sound of the ocean waves filled the silence, a cruel reminder that even when everything looks calm, storms still rage beneath. His phone buzzed. A message from his assistant. Mr. Drake, your meeting with the board starts in 10 minutes. He didn't move. He couldn't. Because for the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about profit margins or headlines. He was thinking about her. Her name was Maya Bennett. 5 years ago, she wasn't anyone special in the eyes of the world, just a warm, hopeful woman working as a florist downtown. But to Alexander, she was everything. She wasn't impressed by his wealth. She never cared for the designer suits or the endless parties. She saw through it, through him, to the broken, lonely boy hiding behind the billionaire mask. They met by accident. A spilled cup of coffee, a rainstorm, and a conversation that lasted until midnight. For the first time, Alexander laughed without calculating what came next. For the first time, he felt human. But happiness, in his world, came with a price. Flashback. Rain pounded against the glass as Alexander stood in the boardroom, voice rising over thunder. You went behind my back, Maya. You told the press about the charity deal before it was finalized. Maya's eyes were red, tears mixing with the rain dripping from her hair. I didn't tell anyone, Alex. I was trying to help. You were too busy fighting your own shadow. He slammed his hand on the table. I trusted you. She stepped back. You trusted your money more. The room fell silent. The air cracked like lightning. And in that silence, 2 hearts shattered in different ways. Maya left that night. No calls, no letters, no trace. And months later, a rumor reached him that she'd left Silvercrest Bay, pregnant. Back in the present, Alexander's chest tightened. He whispered, almost to himself, if it's true, if that child exists, where are you, Maya? Meanwhile, across town, Maya wiped her hands on her apron, adjusting the small flowers in a bouquet marked for Mrs. Langford's wedding. The little shop smelled like roses, lavender, and memories she tried to forget. Outside, a soft drizzle blurred the city lights. Inside, a tiny voice giggled. Mommy, look, I made a flower crown. Maya turned, and there she was, her daughter, 5 years old, Hazel Drake Bennett. Hazel had Alexander's eyes, the same piercing blue that could silence a room. Maya smiled, kneeling to fix the crooked flower crown on her head. You're my little princess. The girl grinned. Then you're the queen! Maya laughed softly, but there was pain in her laughter, because every day she saw him in that little girl, and every night she prayed Hazel would never ask the question she wasn't ready to answer. At the same moment, fate stirred. Alexander's car pulled up in front of a tall glass building, the Drake Corporation. He stepped out, composed, his assistant rushing beside him. Sir, the press is still waiting for your statement about the foundation scandal. He nodded absently. But then something caught his eye. A newspaper headline, half tucked on a bench nearby. Local florist wins city award for community garden project. Below it, a picture. Maya. His breath hitched, her hair shorter now, her eyes softer, but it was her, and right beside her, a little girl, smiling, with blue eyes. He froze. The world stopped spinning. For a moment, all the noise, all the chatter, all the flashing cameras disappeared. All that remained was one thought. She had a child. That night, Alexander couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, mind racing through 1,000 memories, replaying every word, every mistake, every moment he let pride win over love. He whispered, voice cracking, "Why didn't you tell me, Maya?" He tossed the sheets aside, pacing to the window. The moonlight fell on his desk, where the old photo frame still stood. He picked it up again, his thumb tracing her face. And then, for the first time in years, the billionaire made a decision from his heart. He was going to find her. The next morning, Maya hummed softly as she opened the flower shop. Hazel played with a box of ribbons near the counter. The bell above the door chimed, the sound she heard 100 times a day. But this time, it froze her in place, because when she looked up, there he was, Alexander Drake, standing at the door, raincoat damp, eyes heavy, holding a single white rose. Her breath caught, her fingers trembled. For a moment, time reversed. 5 years vanished in a heartbeat. "Maya," he said softly. Her name, like a prayer he'd forgotten how to say. She didn't move, didn't speak. The only sound was Hazel's laughter, pure, innocent, echoing through the small shop. He turned toward the little girl, and in that instant, he knew. The color drained from his face. His heart stopped, because the child looked back at him with his own eyes. Maya swallowed hard. "Alexander, please, not here." He stepped closer, voice breaking. "She's mine, isn't she?" Silence. The kind that makes the world hold its breath. Hazel looked between them, confused. "Mommy? Who's that man?" Maya forced a smile. "No one, sweetie, just a customer." But Alexander's eyes filled with tears, something his billion-dollar world never taught him to control. He turned away, whispering to himself, "My God, I have a daughter." He left without another word. Rain poured again, just like the night she left. But this time, he wasn't angry. He was broken. Back in his car, his hand trembled as he covered his face. The empire he built suddenly felt small, meaningless. He had everything, except the one thing he didn't even know he lost. And now, he was determined to get it back. That night, Silvercrest Bay slept, but two hearts couldn't. In a glass penthouse high above the city, Alexander Drake stood by the window again. The rain had stopped, but the storm inside him hadn't. He replayed the scene over and over. Her voice, her face, the tiny laugh of a child who didn't even know who he was. He whispered to the night, "How many birthdays did I miss? How many nights did she ask about me?" His voice cracked. No boardroom, no empire, no billionaire mask could hold back what was finally breaking through. Regret. The kind that money can't buy back. Across town, Maya tucked Hazel into bed. She brushed her daughter's hair gently, humming that same lullaby she used to sing before everything fell apart. Hazel blinked sleepily. "Mommy, that man today? He looked sad. Why?" Maya's heart clenched. Children saw things adults tried to hide. "He's just someone from a long time ago, sweetheart. Go to sleep." "But you were crying, Mommy." Maya smiled through tears. Sometimes grown-ups cry because they remember things that used to make them happy. Hazel yawned. "Then maybe he'll make you happy again." Maya froze. The innocence of a child could pierce through walls even time couldn't. She kissed her forehead softly. "Sleep, my love. You're my happiness." The next morning, a knock echoed through her small apartment. Maya opened the door slowly and found Alexander standing there. He wasn't in a suit this time. No driver, no bodyguard, just a man holding 2 cups of coffee the same way they met. He said, "I didn't know how you take it now, so I brought both." For a moment, she couldn't speak. The smell of coffee, the sight of his tired eyes, it pulled her 5 years back in time. "Alex, you shouldn't be here." He nodded. "I know, but I had to be." She stepped aside slowly. He entered, looking around the small apartment, the drawings on the fridge, the toys on the floor. Everything screamed life he missed. He turned to her. "She's mine." Maya didn't deny it. She just nodded. Tears filled her eyes, and for the first time, they both cried without words. Minutes passed. Silence filled the room, not awkward, just heavy. Finally, he spoke. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her hands trembled. "Because when I found out, I tried to. I came to your office. You were surrounded by reporters, lawyers, cameras, and you told them to remove me." He looked down, remembering that day, the noise, the pride. She continued softly, "You were fighting another scandal. Your world was falling apart, and I couldn't add to it. You didn't need me then. You needed someone you could control, not someone who'd remind you of your mistakes." He took a slow breath. "And what about her? Didn't I deserve to know she existed?" Maya's eyes glistened. "You did, but she didn't deserve to be a headline. I wanted her to have a childhood, not a story." He turned away, swallowing the truth like a bitter pill. The empire he built had protected him from everything except himself. Hours passed. They talked. About old times, about what went wrong, about the nights she cried alone and the nights he drowned in regret. He whispered, "You were the only one who ever saw me." She looked at him. "Then why did you push me away?" His voice broke. "Because you made me feel small, and I didn't know how to love without control." Silence again. Only the sound of Hazel's laughter drifted in from the next room, pure and unbothered. Maya smiled faintly. "She knows nothing about you. Not yet. I told her her father was traveling, that he loved her but couldn't come back yet." He closed his eyes, voice trembling. "I don't deserve that kindness." She looked at him, really looked at him. The man she once loved wasn't the billionaire on magazine covers. It was this one. Broken, human, trying. Days turned into weeks. Alexander began visiting quietly. He'd show up early in the morning, sometimes with breakfast, sometimes with toys he didn't know how to wrap. He never forced anything. He just showed up. Hazel warmed to him quickly, unaware of the truth. To her, he was just Mr. Alex, the kind man who brought chocolate muffins and told funny stories. One afternoon, as they painted together, Hazel laughed so hard paint splattered across Alexander's shirt. He laughed too, something deep and unguarded. It had been years since he laughed like that. Maya watched from the doorway, heart twisting between joy and fear, because she knew what came next, the truth. That evening, after Hazel fell asleep, Maya stood by the window. Alexander joined her, hands in his pockets. The city glowed below, quiet, endless. He spoke first. "She's incredible. Smart, kind, like you." Maya smiled faintly. She's stubborn, like you. They both laughed softly, the kind of laugh that carried sadness and hope in equal measure. Then came the silence that always came before truth. Alex, what happens when the world finds out? He turned to her, voice gentle. Then the world will have to deal with it. Not you, not her, me. Maya looked away. It's not that simple. The moment people see her, they'll start connecting the dots, and I don't want her life to become another press story. He nodded. I won't let that happen. Not again. She faced him, eyes searching. You can't promise that. You don't even know how to live without headlines. He smiled sadly. Maybe it's time I learn. The next morning, Alexander made a choice that shocked his entire company. He canceled his upcoming press events, postponed the merger, and disappeared from the spotlight. For the first time, he wasn't chasing power. He was chasing peace. He began volunteering at the community garden Maya worked with, quietly, anonymously. At first, people whispered, and they stopped noticing, and slowly, he began to breathe again. Maya noticed it too, the way he changed. He no longer talked about business first. He asked about people. He smiled at strangers. He even stopped checking his phone every minute. The man who once measured life in millions now measured it in moments. One evening, as they closed the garden, Maya handed him a watering can. You missed a spot. He grinned, bossy as ever. She rolled her eyes. Somebody has to keep the billionaire grounded. He laughed softly. Then silence, the kind that didn't feel heavy anymore. He looked at her, voice low. Maya, I don't know if I can fix what I broke, but I want to try. She met his gaze, steady, vulnerable. I'm not asking you to fix it. Just be here. For her, for you. He nodded. And for the first time since that rainy night 5 years ago, they stood together without anger. That weekend, Hazel fell sick. A mild fever, but enough to send panic through both of them. Alexander refused to leave her side. He read stories until his voice cracked, stayed awake, holding her tiny hand as she slept. When Maya saw him there, exhausted, whispering prayers she didn't know he remembered, something inside her healed. This was the man she fell in love with. Not the billionaire, not the legend. Just Alexander. When Hazel woke up the next morning, her fever gone, she smiled weakly. Mr. Alex, are you my daddy? Both adults froze. Maya's eyes widened. Alexander's heart stopped. He looked at Maya. She nodded faintly. It was time. He took Hazel's small hand gently. Yes, sweetheart, I am. Tears filled her eyes, not from confusion, but from something deeper. Mommy said you were far away. I was, but I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again. She smiled, small and sleepy. Promise? He pressed her hand to his lips. I promise. Later that night, Maya stood in the doorway watching them, father and daughter finally together. And for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. But somewhere deep down, she knew. Peace never comes without a cost, because outside that quiet little home, the world was beginning to notice Alexander Drake's disappearance. The press, the board, the vultures. And soon, someone was going to find out his secret. Morning light filtered through the blinds of Maya's apartment. Soft rays brushed across Hazel's sleeping face, her tiny fingers clutching the edge of her blanket. In the kitchen, Alexander poured coffee, staring absently at the steam curling upward. He hadn't been sleeping much, not from regret anymore, but from fear. Fear that the fragile peace they'd built could break. Fear that one day someone would recognize him here, in this quiet world that finally felt like home. Maya walked in quietly, wrapping her robe tighter around her. Couldn't sleep again?
He smiled faintly. Guess I'm not used to silence. It's too honest. She poured herself a cup. You'll get used to it. It's addictive. He chuckled softly, a sound that still surprised her. You make it sound like love. She looked at him, eyes soft. Maybe it is. For a moment they just stood there, two people who had once broken apart, now slowly learning to fit back together again. Later that afternoon, they visited the garden where Hazel loved to play. The air smelled of jasmine and freshly cut grass. Alexander knelt, helping Hazel plant tiny seeds, his expensive watch glittering in the sunlight. Hazel looked up at him innocently. "Daddy, will the flowers grow fast?" He smiled. "Not fast, sweetheart, but strong. The best things take time." Maya stood nearby, watching them, her heart quietly mending with every laugh, every small act of love she once thought she'd never see again. It was everything she had prayed for, until the past came knocking again. That evening, as they locked up the flower shop, a shadow lingered by the corner. A man with a camera. Maya didn't notice him, but Alexander did. The next morning, it happened. A phone call from his assistant, panic in her voice. "Sir, there's a picture of you online at a flower shop with a woman and a little girl." His heart dropped. He opened his laptop, and there it was, a headline already gaining traction. Alexander Drake's secret family? Billionaire seen in Silver's Crest Bay with mystery child? His breath caught. Not again. He closed his laptop slowly, hands trembling. Maya watched him from across the room. What happened? He met her eyes, guilt flooding through him. They found us. The following days blurred into a haze of whispers, flashing cameras, and questions with no answers. Reporters appeared outside her shop, shouting, "Is it true? Is Alexander Drake the father?" Customers stopped coming. The landlord called twice, and for the first time in years, Maya felt the same panic she'd felt when she left him. Only this time, she wasn't alone. She looked out the window one night, tears streaming. All I ever wanted was peace, for her, for us. Alexander walked to her side, voice low and steady. "I'll fix this." She turned sharply. "You can't fix everything, Alex. This isn't a scandal you can pay off." He didn't respond. He just stared at her, pain in his eyes. "I'm not trying to pay it off. I'm going to own it." 2 days later, the world watched as Alexander Drake, the man known for his control and coldness, walked into a press room. No entourage, no rehearsed statement, just truth. The cameras flashed wildly. "Mr. Drake, is it true, the rumors about the child?" He stepped up to the podium, took a deep breath, and spoke. "Yes, it's true." Gasps rippled across the room. The reporters leaned forward, pens scratching furiously. He continued, voice softer now. 5 years ago, I made mistakes. I lost someone I loved because I thought control was strength. I thought pride could protect me. It didn't. He paused, his throat tightening. I have a daughter. Her name is Hazel. And I don't care what the world thinks. I'm proud to be her father. The room went silent. No one had ever seen Alexander Drake cry, until now. Back home, Maya watched the broadcast on her small TV. Hazel sat beside her, confused but smiling. "That's Daddy!" Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, baby, that's Daddy." When the press conference ended, the world didn't mock him. They admired him. For the first time, people saw not a billionaire, but a man. But not everyone was happy. Within hours, his board called an emergency meeting. His company's stock was dropping. Investors demanded explanations. He walked into the boardroom calmly, every gaze sharp, every question heavier than the last. "Why didn't you disclose this earlier? This affects our brand image. You've compromised the company." He listened in silence, then spoke quietly. "You're right. I failed to disclose the most important part of my life, not because I was ashamed, but because I was afraid. Afraid that if people knew I was human, I'd lose everything." He looked around the room, steady, unbroken. "But if being human costs me the company, then so be it. I'll build another one. What I won't do is lose my family again." Silence. Not one man could speak. And in that silence, Alexander Drake walked away from the company he built, not as a billionaire, as a father. Back home, Maya opened the door to find him standing there again. No suit, no briefcase, just a man who had finally chosen love over everything else. He smiled weakly. "I'm officially unemployed." She laughed through tears. "Then welcome to the real world." He stepped closer. "Maya, I meant what I said. I'll rebuild everything from scratch if I have to, but I won't rebuild it without you." She looked up at him. The man she once feared had no soul left, and saw warmth in his eyes. Real, unguarded warmth. She whispered, "You already did."
They stood there for a long time, the quiet of the apartment wrapping around them like forgiveness itself. Outside, the first snowflakes of winter began to fall. The city, the noise, the headlines, all faded away. Inside, it was just them, and the promise of something real. Winter deepened in Silver Crest Bay. Snow blanketed the streets like a soft memory, quieting everything, even the past. Inside Maya's flower shop, Christmas lights glowed faintly against the windows. Hazel giggled as she hung paper snowflakes on the counter. And for the first time in years, Maya's laughter joined hers, unforced, unafraid. Alexander worked quietly in the back, sleeves rolled up, helping her prepare bouquets for the holiday rush. The billionaire who once ruled skyscrapers now counted rose petals by hand. He didn't mind. He'd never felt richer. But that night, when the shop was quiet and Hazel had gone to bed, Maya noticed Alexander sitting alone, staring at something small in his hand. A velvet box. He quickly slipped it into his pocket when she walked in. She smiled knowingly. "Planning to sell jewelry next, Mr. Drake?" He laughed softly. "Something like that." She sat across from him, tucking a stray hair behind her ear. They didn't speak for a while, just the sound of the wind outside and the faint ticking of the wall clock. Then, finally, he looked up. "Maya, do you remember the first time I said I loved you?" She nodded slowly. "You didn't actually say it. You just bought me an island." He chuckled. "Yeah, my version of love back then was ownership, possession." He reached across the table, his hand brushing hers. I know I can't undo the past, but I've learned that love isn't about control. It's about choice, every single day." Her eyes glistened. "And what are you choosing now?" He took a deep breath. "You." The next morning, Maya woke up to find a note on her bedside table. "Meet me at the old greenhouse at sunset." Her heart skipped. That place, where they first met years ago when she was a florist working under her company's landscaping division. By evening, she arrived. The greenhouse was transformed. Hundreds of candles flickered across the floor. Soft music floated through the air, and everywhere she looked, white lilies, her favorite flowers. Then she saw him, standing in the center, in a simple black coat, waiting. He turned as she entered, and for a moment, everything else disappeared. "Maya," he said softly, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I built empires to feel powerful, but I was never truly strong until I lost everything and found you again." He took a small step closer. "You gave me something no boardroom, no fortune, no title ever could. Peace." Her eyes shimmered. "Alex." He reached into his pocket, pulled out the velvet box, and dropped to one knee. "Maya Lawson, I don't want another empire. I want a life. With you. With Hazel. Forever." He opened the box. Inside was a simple gold ring, elegant yet humble. Not wealth, not status, just promise. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "Yes, yes, Alex." He slipped the ring onto her finger, stood, and pulled her into his arms. For the first time, their embrace didn't feel like escape, it felt like home. Weeks later, they married in a small ceremony by the sea. No headlines, no press. Just close friends, laughter, and sunlight breaking through the clouds. Hazel walked down the aisle, tossing rose petals, giggling all the way. When the officiant asked who gave the bride away, Hazel shouted proudly, "Me!" Everyone laughed, and Maya cried again. As Alexander said his vows, his voice trembled with sincerity. "I spent years building walls so no one could hurt me. But you walked through every one of them and planted flowers where the ruins were. You taught me love is not weakness, it's courage." Maya smiled, her voice soft but firm. "And you taught me that forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's believing again." When they kissed, the waves crashed like applause. Later that evening, the reception was held on the beach. Fairy lights swayed in the breeze. Hazel danced barefoot in the sand, her laughter echoing across the shore. Alexander watched her with wonder. "She's got your spirit," he said. Maya leaned her head on his shoulder. "And your stubbornness." He chuckled. "Then she's unstoppable." They stood there for a while, watching the sun melt into the horizon. Finally, Maya turned to him. "Do you ever miss the old life?" He shook his head slowly. "No. For the first time, I'm living the one I always wanted. I just didn't know it." That night, after everyone left, Alexander carried Hazel to bed and tucked her in. She looked up sleepily and whispered, "Daddy, are you happy now?" He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "More than ever, sweetheart." She grinned dreamily. "Good, 'cause Mommy said when people love each other, God smiles too." He swallowed hard, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Then heaven must be smiling really wide tonight." They say money changes everything, but love changes you. I spent years chasing power, not realizing the real power was in forgiveness, in holding on not to control, but to hope. I used to measure my worth by what I owned. Now I measure it by who waits for me at home. I once had an empire. Now I have a family. And that is the greatest fortune I'll ever know. If you enjoyed this story, like, comment, share, and subscribe to Golden Billionaire Stories, where every tale drips with luxury, power, and passion. Because here, love always comes with a price.